Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi everyone, David Aragona here for another episode of the TimeformUS Road to the Derby series. A couple of significant Derby preps taking place on U.S. soil this Saturday, offering 100 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner of each of them. In Hot Springs, Arkansas, the major race there is the Arkansas Derby, Grade 1 affair for the 3-year-olds, going 1 1/8 miles, race 12 on their card. And there's a field of 10 runners signed on for this Arkansas Derby, and we have 3 major players that are likely to attract the bulk of the wagering public support here. Those, of course, are the number 2 Timberlake, the number 7 Muth, and the number 9 Mystic Dan. All of those horses coming off recent victories on the road to the Kentucky Derby Trail, though Muth, who is the morning line favorite, slightly over Timberlake at 8-5, he is not eligible to pick up those 100 Kentucky Derby qualifying points that would be awarded to the winner of this race, being that he is trained by Bob Baffert. He is not eligible for the Kentucky Derby, so that throws a bit of a monkey wrench into the qualification out of this Arkansas Derby if Muth is to do well in this race, but he obviously is a contender, as is Timberlake and Mystic Dan, both coming off local wins at Oaklawn in the Rebel and Southwest, respectively. To get a sense of how this race might be run through the early stage, let's take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector for this Arkansas Derby, and you see the fast pace flag showing up there. Understandable, since there is some speed in this race, likely to come from the number 4 Time for Truth. He did stalk the pace in his most recent start, where they stretched him out to 2 turns for the first time, but this horse clearly has a ton of early speed. He led through much fast fractions in some sprint races in the first couple starts of his career, but it would be a bit of a surprise if the connections decide not to utilize his early speed in this Arkansas Derby. But horses like Timberlake and Muth, they both possess plenty of tactical speed themselves. I think each of them, though, would be content to take up a stalking position in this race, just off that likely early leader. If the race does come apart at all, note that a couple of horses have that LP flag on the pace projector, indicating that they have the highest TimeformUS late pace ratings in this field. Those are the number 5 Liberal Arts and the number 10 Imperial Gun. Let's go through this field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1, Will Take It, who is listed at a massive 50-1 on the morning line. This horse outran his odds, to say the least, last time, when he just barely lost a maiden race at Oaklawn Park at 42-1. So he is coming into this race still a maiden. He had run better than it might appear, given the results of those first 2 starts. He had been green in both races, had gotten a very tough trip in his second start, and got on track last time to show that he does have some of that latent potential that was inherent in his pedigree and that $700,000 purchase price. However, he is a horse that will be stepping way up in class in this race, and it's a lot to ask of a horse that is coming off a loss against Maiden Company last time out. The number 2 is Timberlake, who is one of those favorites on the morning line. We'll take a look at his most recent effort in the Rebel Stakes, when he just had a perfect return from the layoff, making his 3-year-old debut against a field of overmatched competition. He was 4-5 in this race for a reason, and he delivered on that public support. You can see he drifts out a little bit in the stretch here after changing leads. He gets a little bit unfocused there, but once Christian Torres gives him a couple slaps of the whip on the right-hand side, he's able to straighten himself out and finish up this race the way that you would want to see a horse coming back off the layoff. And he's just been the picture of consistency from a speed figure standpoint. And all the races where he's shown up with good efforts, he's run TimeformUS speed figures between 111 and 112, has reeled off actually 3 112s in a row coming into this race. And given that he earned that last figure coming off a layoff, it might be reasonable to expect a step forward now in the second start of his 3-year-old season. He's been trading forwardly into this race. Timberlake has always been a rock star workhorse in the morning, so never a surprise when he's trading well coming into any of his starts. He drew a good post position here, gets a jockey upgrade to Flavien Prat. No knock against Christian Torres, but Flavien Prat, currently one of the leading jockeys in the country. So Timberlake projects to get a good trip in this race, and he arguably is the horse to beat in this Arkansas Derby. The number 3 is Dtic. He has another horse coming out of that Rebel Stakes that we just looked at. He was no real factor that day, just sort of staying on at one pace in mid-pack to get up for 5th. He ran pretty well to break his maiden 2 back. That was on Southwest Day when he was the winner over that sloppy track. Got a very good trip until he sort of was his own worst enemy through the final 1/8 of a mile, greenly ducking out under pressure before straightening himself up to finish that race off, comfortably beating an overmatched group. Like I said, just no match for Timberlake and the Rebel last time, so he would have to take a big step forward to beat this very tough Grade 1 field on Saturday in Arkansas. The number 4 is Time for Truth. We'll take a look at his most recent start when he was the winner of a 1.16 mile optional claiming race at Oaklawn. This is his first attempt to race beyond 6 furlongs, as he was trying winners for the second time after finishing second in the Ozark Stakes 2 back going the sprint distance. And he gets the job done here. I wouldn't say he's necessarily finishing like a horse that is crying out for more ground this day, but he was just more talented than the group that he was facing on this occasion. Watching this horse run, I do get the sense that at a distance is probably not going to be his friend, and arguably the 1.16 mile was stretching him to his utmost limit last time out. He still earned a solid 106 TimeformUS speed figure for that race, but didn't quite measure up to the number that he got on debut when he earned a 109, actually a 110 TimeformUS final time number for that 6 furlong effort. So I wonder about stamina for Time for Truth, but he is likely to lead this field for quite a ways as the expected pace setter in this Arkansas Derby. The number 5 is Liberal Arts. He is coming out of the Southwest Stakes, so returning from brief freshening as he skipped the Rebel and is trained up to this Arkansas Derby. And I thought he put in a pretty good effort in the Southwest, coming off a bit of a layoff last time. He did get a good trip, saving ground for the first 6 furlongs of that race. And I think February 3rd was a day where you wanted to be towards the inside over that muddy track at Oaklawn. The winner obviously rode the rail for his entire trip. But Liberal Arts did angle out into the 3 path at the top of the stretch. Took him about a furlong to find his best stride, but I really thought he was finishing well across the wire, galloped out strongly right up to the winner, Mystic Dan past the wire. So that was a good step forward for Liberal Arts. And I think this horse showed real ability as a 2-year-old. I liked his maiden score at Ellis Park going the 7 furlong distance. He really should have won that Iroquois when he tried winners for the first time, got a tough trip that day, steadying multiple times, altering course through the stretch. That was just an awkward trip and ride, but he came back with a good effort, trying 2 turns for the first time in the street sense. He's got to step it up again from a speed figure standpoint, but now he's second off the layoff, and I think this is a horse that might still be underrated coming into this Arkansas Derby, and if pace develops, he should be finishing strongly at the end. The number 6 is Informed Patriot. He is one of 3 Steve Asmussen trainees in this field, and he's just going to have to do better than last time when he was pretty disappointing as the slight 8-5 second choice in the Sunland Park Derby. He was supposed to be competitive with the winner of that race, Stronghold. They were the 2 protagonists coming in, and Informed Patriot really just had nothing to offer through the stretch of that race. He did run better 2-back in the Smarty Jones, had to alter course a bit in the stretch of that race, that racing towards the inside, though no match for Catching Freedom or Just Steel, who finished ahead of him on that occasion. So he's just going to have to get a little faster than even that top 107 TimeformUS speed figure, and that most recent start doesn't exactly give you confidence that he is on an upward trajectory coming into this race. The number 7 is Muth, who is that morning line favorite coming in for Bob Baffert. We'll take a look at his most recent start in the San Vicente Stakes back at the beginning of January, going the 7 furlong distance. And obviously, this just a prep race, turning him back. Bob Baffert didn't have to be in any hurry with this horse, given the Churchill Downs ban of his runners from competing in the Kentucky Derby. So he's had some time between the San Vicente Triumph and the Arkansas Derby, almost exactly 3 months, as he's competing at the very end of March after making that 3-year-old debut at the very beginning of January. He was obviously a very good 2-year-old, finishing second behind Fierceness in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Nobody was beating that 2-year-old champion that day, but Muth ran pretty well to be second, earning a career best 1:15 TimeformUS speed figure. That makes him the fastest horse coming in here. It's not like that was some fluke last year, because he also ran fast in the American Pharoah, going 2 turns at the 1.16 mile distance. He's got to stretch out to the 1.1 mile here. He did miss a little bit of training time between February and March. You can kind of see it in his workout pattern that he missed a drill or two between February 25th and March 10th, but he's been training steadily up to this race, a trio of 6 furlong drills in March. I wouldn't say that he's training out of his skin like we sometimes see these Bob Baffert horses coming in, shipping into a grade 1 race, but he appears to be doing well enough, and you would imagine he'll run well in this race if he can stretch his speed out to the 1 1/8 distance. The number 8 is Just Steel, and this is the most experienced horse in this race. He's making the 11th start of his career already, the 4th start of his 3-year-old campaign, whereas some others are making just the 2nd starts of their campaigns. Just Steel has been on a busy schedule. There's no doubt that this horse has quality. He showed it last year in a number of races, though lacking some consistency. When he did put forth one of his better efforts, he ran speed figures that make him somewhat competitive in here. We saw that 2 and 3 back when he was second in both the Marty Jones and the Southwest. Did not get a good trip in the Southwest as he was wide every step of the way over a track that appeared to be favoring rail runners. And then last time out, while he was competing over a fair racetrack in the Rebel Stakes, that was still an impossible trip. He was 4 to 5 wide around both turns. You can't lose that much ground against a quality field like he was facing in the Rebel last time, so no big surprise that he was ineffective in that race. I'm not sure that 1 1/8 is really up this horse's alley. I think he's ultimately going to be best when he turns back to one-turn races, hopefully in the future. But he is better than his last couple of results would indicate, and he's going to be a big price in this race. Getting this rider switch to Keith Asmussen, who has been riding very well during this Oaklawn Park meet, I would not be surprised if Just Steel outruns his odds in this Arkansas Derby. The number 9 is Mystic Dam. We'll take a look at his impressive victory in the Southwest over that muddy track at the beginning of February, and you can tell watching this replay, he absolutely relished this muddy sealed surface that he encountered in early February for this Southwest victory. He is just striding out powerfully over the surface coming onto the wire. Nobody else finishing with the victory that this horse is coming across the finish line. Caused an 11-1 upset this day. He's likely to be a much shorter price on Saturdays. He tries to prove that this race was no fluke. It's not like he had never earned a competitive speed figure before. He obviously had earned a big number, breaking his maiden, going 5.5 furlongs at Churchill Downs back in November, a 1:14 final time number that day, knocked down a little bit due to a slow pace going that short distance. I think the big question is whether or not he's a horse that really wants to go the 1 1/8 distance over a fast racetrack. He seemed to really spurt away like a turf horse last time over that sealed going, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a horse that ultimately relishes getting an opportunity on turf based on the way that he moves over those sealed surfaces. But stretching out to the 9 furlongs here, trying to back up that last performance when I do believe he was with a rail bias that day, I'm just a little skeptical that Mystic Dan is going to be able to repeat that performance, and I think he's going to need to do so to beat his 2 main rivals in this spot. And then rounding out the field on the outside is the number 10 Imperial Gun, the third of that trio of Steve Asmussen trained horses in this race. All of those horses for this barn are likely to be big prices in here, and Imperial Gun just has a lot to prove after losing as the 4 to 5 favorite against Allowance Company last time out. Really no match for that group. The horse that finished ahead of him wouldn't exactly be considered major contenders in this race. He was visually impressive, breaking his maiden 2 back, but got a very good trip in doing so, and he just has to get a lot faster than he's run already to win a race like the Arkansas Derby. Let's throw up my picks for this grade 1 affair on Saturday, and I'm going to take a shot with the number 5 Liberal Arts. I don't know if we're going to get the 15-1 that he's pegged out on the morning line, but I think even a price around 8-1 would be fair on a horse that is moving in the right direction, finished up powerfully in the Southwest last time, and seems like a horse has a son of Arrogate that is going to appreciate every bit of this 9 furlong distance that he's going to get to work with on Saturday. I've got Timberlake in there. I think Timberlake is the horse to beat in this race, and Muth I'm downgrading a little bit. I'm a little skeptical about the 1 1/8 distance for him. I do think the number 8 Just Steel is a horse that could outrun his odds, but I think winning going this demanding distance could be a major hurdle for him. So it's the number 5 Liberal Arts, my top pick in the grade 1 Arkansas Derby on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.